see. Okay, we're still a couple minutes over here, so that's fine. So it's open. Okay. Welcome. If you've been on one of our sessions in the past, you know that we like to just hear from you in the chat function where you're coming from today. Just maybe put in the city. Great. Don't be shy. Tell us where you're joining us from. Vancouver. That's a popular destination or a popular location, I guess. I'm the only one so far from Toronto. Ah, another Torontonian. Vancouver. Great. So we're just gonna, we started this a couple minutes early just so we can let everybody into the session. And if you're new and you're just joining, please do let us know where you're joining from. It's all Toronto and Vancouver so far. Huh. Hello, welcome. If you're just joining us, please use the chat function and tell us where you are joining from. Okay, if you're just joining us, let us know where you're coming from. Hello, Eva. I know you're from Toronto. It's 2 o'clock now, but we'll just give it another minute. Montreal. Oh yes, the other Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Hello and welcome. If you're just joining us, feel free to let us know where you're joining from. I'm just going to give it another minute to let people in. Okay. All right, to be respectful of everybody's time, I think that we can get started. I see people are still trickling in. However, I'm Kelly Drennan. I'm the founder of Fashion Takes Action. and the producer of the World Ethical Apparel Roundtable, or the WEAR Conference. This year, of course, with COVID, we have had to pivot and, like many of our colleagues and partners around the world, offer you a digital version of our conference. So we're excited to have this final session, which is a part of our kickoff series on rebuilding the fashion industry. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear that this is free, this series, and it's free because of the generous support of our sponsors. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank the kickoff series sponsors, which are H&M, WRAP, PwC Canada, and of course, Business Development Bank of Canada, who is with us today. And without all of your support, we would not be able to offer this series for free. If you're just joining us for the first time, over the last couple of days, we have had jam-packed sessions focused on rebuilding the fashion industry, covering topics like supply chain traceability and transparency, human rights, worker voice, science-based targets, and now our final session, I'm sure will not disappoint. How does one lead through the chaos of a pandemic? How can sustainability remain a priority when companies are struggling to keep their doors open? Today, we will hear 2 examples of B Corp businesses in an engaging discussion led by Carla Heim of the Business Development Bank of Canada, or BDC, who supports so many fashion entrepreneurs and B corporations, and whose support has no doubt been of benefit throughout this pandemic and looking forward to the future. So I will now let Carla take the reins as I become an active listener. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. So happy to be here today. I hope everybody's brought a lot of energy. This is supposed to be a fireside chat, so everybody put your hands together like you're sitting around a fire and warming yourself up, and we'll just get into a nice conversation with these absolutely brilliant, brave, and progressive leaders. I am so happy that I am joined today by Suzanne Siemens and Derek Emsley. Suzanne is with Isle and Derek is with Tentree. And really, honestly, without further ado, I really want to get into this conversation because these 2 are B Corp leaders. B Corp is a certification for organizations that are really leaning into their purpose and impact and really want to track and improve on that. But they're also leaders that are very innovative, and we've noticed that during this time of chaos have been able to really shift and handle a little bit more of the chaos because of the type of leaders they are. Of course, I'm with BDC. BDC is the only bank in Canada exclusively dedicated to entrepreneurs. And the really cool thing is we are also a B Corp certified organization. So I would like to introduce both of our panelists, and my first question, I'd rather them explain what they're doing in their lives than me. So my first question to both of them is really, what is your brand all about? And also, what makes you such a progressive leader? And I'd like to start maybe with Suzanne. Suzanne?
Just unmute myself. Thanks so much, Carla. It's a huge pleasure to be here, and I also appreciate Kelly inviting us as well. I'm calling you here from Vancouver, which is the unceded territory of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations. And Isle is a period care brand, and we have a bold vision to transform the way people manage their bodies and think about their periods. And the name Isle kind of envisions that we want to envision a new period aisle where period shame and disposable pads and tampons are kicked to the curb. And the way we do this is we make sustainable period care products. Namely, we make period underwear, of which I will say we were one of the first to start commercially selling them. We make cloth menstrual pads that are washable, and we make menstrual cups. Now, while the idea of a reusable period product may seem kind of foreign to some of you, a recent survey actually indicated that 59% of respondents have either tried or are considering trying reusable menstrual products. And we've seen enormous growth recently in our sector. Period underwear in particular is becoming a hugely interesting category for us. The other thing about our brand that we're really well known for is just our activism around feminism, around size inclusion, and around gender inclusion. And it's convenient for really big brands to ignore some of these demographics and say that, we're not serving that community. But for Isle, we design with equity in mind. We specifically offer styles that are truly size inclusive, and by that, and folks in the fashion industry will understand that, we engage people who understand the sizing needs of plus size folks and make sure that our styles truly fit them and they're not just a grading exercise. It's actually making sure that they truly fit. And then we also offer styles that affirm people's gender identity. And so I have behind me a pair of boxer briefs, and folks who have periods don't always identify as women. So we ensure that our products suit those who are gender nonconforming or trans folks. And so it's really important to us that people are not excluded and feel included in what we offer. And I guess in terms of leadership, I feel like being a B Corp kind of defines my leadership, because we're always striving to do better and to encourage our team to adopt the host of best practices that B Corp community offers. And in doing so, we look at, how can we be more sustainable in our supply chain? How can we be better in our community? And so that really kind of drives how we direct what we do. And so much so that in the past 4 years, just a little brag, we've actually been a top 10% B Corporation for the last 4 years, because we're always constantly striving to do better. And that kind of recognition acknowledges that we're doing the right thing, and we're really proud of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. You are an incredibly brave leader. I've known you for a long time, and everything you've just said is exactly what I see every day in the way you do everything in your life. So thank you so much for sharing that. Derek, I'd love for you to go next. Tell us about Tentree.
Yeah, happy to. That was tough to follow, Susan. But Fred, at Tentree, we're a tree planting company that sells apparel. So our vision, our goal as an organization is to plant 1 billion trees. And we do it through selling the most sustainable product that we possibly can and planting 10 trees for every item that we sell. To date, we've planted over 50 million trees. We're sourcing and manufacturing what we believe to be some of the most sustainable product in the apparel space. And we became a B Corp about 6 years ago. And just like Susan, we are in that top 10%. And I think specifically in our space, the only apparel brand that's actually today leading us from a score standpoint is Patagonia. So it's been a really kind of exciting journey for us to use the B Corp certification as sort of a benchmarking tool. I mean, for us, we started the business to plant trees. We didn't know a thing about apparel when we started it. Apparel was really just our vehicle to plant those trees. And we've kind of gone on this journey as an organization of, okay, well, how do we actually manufacture sustainably? How do we source sustainably? How do we create a sustainable supply chain, an equitable supply chain through everything that we do? And B Corp has sort of helped serve as a bit of a measuring stick for us, for not just the product that we're creating and the impact we're having through tree planting, but also the impact that we're having within our own organization here at home with our employees and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, from our standpoint, we're on that journey to plant as many trees as we possibly can.
That's great, Derek. So for both of you, obviously what's happened in the past 6 months, none of us could have predicted. It's been horrible, but it's also presented opportunities. But what was it like for you in the early days of the chaos of COVID? So much changed overnight, and you as leaders really had to, immediately look at how you were going to proceed and sort of predict this unpredictable future of how it will affect your brands. I'm going to start with Suzanne, because you have a really interesting story, because you recently rebranded right at that same time. How was that for you, Suzanne?
Well, it was hugely disappointing, I would say. So for those of you who don't know, before we rebranded as Isle, we were known as Luna Pads. And it's a long-term, highly revered brand that really needed a refresh given all the exciting activity that was happening in the period care space. So we have been planning this for 2 years. And if anyone's ever rebranded, it takes a long time. Logos, product changes, branding changes. And it was just this build up to something so exciting. And we unveiled it the week that the WHO declared a global pandemic. And what that meant was all our PR campaigns, all the media that had been lined up, the pop-up store that we had arranged, all the social media campaigns talking about, look at us, most of them got canceled, and we had to tone down our messaging. So I would say it was just hugely deflating, along with everyone else just trying to figure out how to deal with COVID and stop working from the office and working from home and adjusting. So we went through the usual things that every other business did, but we had the extra added kind of disappointment of not being able to kind of come out and really showcase the new brand. Having said that, we're primarily a direct-to-consumer brand, and so the hit from COVID wasn't maybe obviously as severe as it has been for restaurants and service businesses. And the phrase that's often used in our industry is periods don't stop for a pandemic. So people are still buying our products, and I think we've just had to be more resourceful. The other thing is we did a very small pivot. We shifted our manufacturing to make cloth masks. And we did it right away at a time when all the health officials were saying, do not use cloth masks, they're not recommended. And we went ahead and did it anyway because of this. We were getting requests from frontline workers who are working in Vancouver's downtown east side saying, we need protection. We don't want to take away from the N95s and masks used by healthcare workers in hospitals, but we need something so that we can continue serving our clients. And we struggled with this because we were hearing reports that cloth masks were not okay. Everything was pointing to that. But we went ahead anyway because we knew we needed to serve our community, and they were desperate. So we launched a Gofundme campaign, and we asked our production partners, would you go back to the factory and start making them? And of course, they said, yes, we want to support you. After that, we also thought, well, why don't we make these masks available to the public and do it on a buy one, give one method? So we're not making any money making these cloth masks. They're just a vehicle to help us support providing more masks to our community. And to date, we have donated and supplied over 3,000 masks to frontline workers in Vancouver's downtown east side, and keep getting requests for them because the demand is not going away. So that was just a small pivot we did to be of service to our community. And it's so much in line with being a B Corp as well.
I really think that so speaks to the trust and transparency of your brand, that during a time of complete chaos, your disappointment about relaunching your brand as Isle, you actually thought about your local community and you put them first. I mean, that's a beautiful statement. And I think that really is the leadership that we're talking about today, that it's not all about just ourselves, it's actually about our communities and this local impact. And we saw that shift in COVID right away. So I think there's that trust and transparency in Isle that you just don't get in everyday brands. So it's a pretty incredible story.
Thanks.
Derek, you had a little bit of a different spin. So I'd love for you to share of what it looked like in the early days for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we went through a rebrand last year, and it was not even nearly to the magnitude of what you guys went through at Isle. And it was tough enough without a pandemic. So I can only imagine what that was like. We, you know, for us, our business is both wholesale and e-commerce. So we have both the direct to consumer side as well as the wholesale partnership. And when the pandemic hit, the thing that felt closest was, what's this going to do to wholesale? Retail shutting down, people aren't going into stores. What's that going to do? And so we kind of went through this planning process of looking at our business and saying, what's the worst case? And it started with receivables that are outstanding. How do we collect on those? And then upcoming orders that were to be delivered, what are we going to do with that inventory? And then product that's about to come in, how are we going to ensure that we're able to pay our factories, keep that product on target, and as well, will that product have a home once it arrives? And then kind of coming around full circle, the question became, well, what happens to consumer confidence when people are losing jobs, they don't know where their next paycheck's going to come from? And does that start to slow e-commerce? And does this sort of end up in a spiral that ultimately results in a pretty significant cash crunch? And, For us, the wholesale expectations, the retail side has definitely been challenging. It's been a really difficult sort of area to navigate. I think fortunately for us, especially in our Canadian wholesale side of our business, it's started to recover here in the last couple of months as stores have started to open. But there's a lot of measures that stores are having to go through to deal with, overstaffing, extra cleaning that is making them less profitable. And we need to be a good partner to them through that. On the e-com side, we're fortunate that, we kind of went into it and we said, who's buying clothes? Who's buying apparel when, they need to be focused on getting groceries? But fortunately for us, I think the flip side of that was there's a lot of eyeballs on, digital platforms, social media, things like that. And we were able to get our message out there. And at the same time, there was this shifting consumer behavior that was happening where people were really being more thoughtful about where they were putting their dollars to work. And so I think these sort of, these trends that were happening ultimately worked in our favor on our direct to consumer side. And so kind of coming out of all this, we're finding is that the wholesale side of our business has definitely taken a step back, but we're working to support and make that side of our business come back stronger. But the e-com side has definitely taken, at least a 12-month step forward from where our expectations could have been. And so now it's really a focus on how do we accelerate that? How do we maintain that momentum? And how do we keep that up?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I really loved about your brand was that during this time, you really kept on focusing on your purpose. So reforestation, some of the campaigns that you had recently started with reforestation in Australia, for example, you maintained that. And I think you have allies as customers. So those allies didn't let you down. They were still interested in all of these things, climate action, the fact that your brand really is pivotal in there. In the activism that you do. So I think that piece likely really helped you during this time because your customers are really allies because of the way you run your brand. And you're very transparent about that. Yeah.
I mean, when COVID hit, we didn't know what would happen, when our product would arrive, all these sorts of things. And we went straight into sort of storytelling mode. And it was, how do we get our message out there? How do we ensure that we're communicating in a transparent and authentic way with our team, with our consumers? And, we were coming into the 50th anniversary of Earth Day in April. And so we had a ton of really incredible things teed up for that. And we really had to pivot because ultimately it wasn't the conversation that was most important to be having at that time. And so there's a lot of incredible things that our team did to pull, new stories together, wildfire stories in Australia, dealing with the wildfires in the Amazon with our new Peru planting project and things like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's incredible. So if you think about everything you've gone through, we're now in this new COVID reality. We don't know when it's going to be over, but everybody's in this position of, building back better. And I'm curious for you as a brand, what that looks like for you going forward. Maybe Derek, you can carry on.
Sure. For us, we went through that phase of survival. And then you sort of went into reset where it was, okay, what is our belief of what the world's going to look like coming out of COVID? And then it was about thriving, to your point. And it's really, okay, based on those beliefs of what the world is going to look like and what people are going to care about and think about, how is our brand positioned? And I think when you think of what those themes are, it's a more conscious consumer. We're well positioned in that regard. It's a more digital buying behavior. Where I think we're definitely making sure that we're more positioned in that regard. And it's really just about having more authentic connections with your consumers, to your point, allies. And it's how do we continue to instill our storytelling and our connection with our customers in a more meaningful way? And so, for us, the biggest change has just been more digital. And that means for both sides of the business. That means digital as in the direct consumer side is how are we accelerating that side of the business and keeping it dynamic and nimble, but also the wholesale side of the business, we've shifted to an entirely digital sales model which, at this point, roughly 80% of our customer base are over, I believe it's like 1,200 wholesale accounts across Canada and the United States, have over 80% of them have said this is how they want to do business going forward. We can have different types of connections through these fun and interactive line showings where rather than, maybe sitting down with a sales rep and that having very little connection to the actual brand, they get to meet myself. They get to meet some of the other co-founders. They get to meet, the actual people behind the product that they're touching and feeling and seeing.
Oh, I think that's a great message. I think that you've really hit on the things that have been most important about engagement, about online presence, and really sticking to who you are and your message and the purpose that comes through in that conversation. And Suzanne, you're doing something similar, and I know that the piece that's so important to ISLE is the activism. To really like one thing I love about your brand is the way you take away the shame around periods. I've never heard anybody talk about that before. So it's incredible to hear the activism that you have for women around that topic, and for, like you say, those that don't identify as being a woman as well, but still have a period. Do you think that plays a role for you going forward?
Yeah, I agree with Derek that we really need to lean in even harder into our storytelling, because everyone's struggling and everyone's having difficulties making good choices. And I think as B Corps, we can lean into our storytelling because we have actually a positive message to bring, that you can make a difference through your choices and through conscious capitalism, if you will. And one thing that we have been doing during the pandemic is actually we did a full life cycle analysis of our products, and we engaged actually a Canadian startup called Green Story. And they did a full analysis of all our ISLE products and then compared them to disposable products and gave us really hard data that shows how much is there an improvement to greenhouse gases, to energy use, and to waste by using ISLE products. And the data was incredible. It's like 35 to 95% less energy and greenhouse gas emissions and 99% less waste on a number of our products. So there was a huge range, but mostly incredibly powerful. And so what we plan on doing in the coming weeks is actually launching a widget on our website, which will indicate for every product that is on our website, you can actually see how much energy is saved, how much greenhouse gases are saved, how much waste is saved, so that people can actually feel good about their choices and not feel like, oh, I'm just acquiring fast fashion, which is not the case in our example. And just actually, yeah, as you say, digging deeper in our activism, because I watched a TED Talk recently, and the speaker said, business is one of the most effective forms of activism, and business is one of the most expressive forms of art. And so if you can combine art and activism and put that together and make people feel good about their choices and storytell and continue engaging influencers who want to share your story and want to advance issues like racial equity and trans awareness and plus size, folks who want to say, like, I'm beautiful exactly the way I am. This is a way that we can have a positive message in times where things are really, really hard and rough. And I guess trying to figure out ways to make capitalism not look so negative. And capitalism at its best is when you can use it as a vehicle to create more innovative products that serve more people. It can create a better economy. It can yield greater productivity that benefits everyone and not just the wealthy and the people that are selling groceries and like the Amazons, but that everyone can participate in a green and sustainable recovery. And that's what we're hoping to do, and hoping that our message will shine through when we can launch some of these new initiatives and campaigns.
Yeah, I'm very confident that it will shine through, that's for sure. I really appreciate you answering the questions that I had today, but I would love to open it up to our audience. Kelly, I think, is going to help us. Are there any questions from our audience for either one of our panel members? You can either put it in the chat or...
There is one in the Q&A if you want to ask that.
Okay. You might, oh, I don't see it.
I can see it and I can answer
Can you? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, Elizabeth asks, and great question, Elizabeth asks, COVID has brought about a big push for social change. Do you think that inclusivity of size, gender, and race is going to be the key to success in the future? And if so, how can it be done in a genuine way and not just performative marketing? And I'm seeing that all the time. I've seen brands, I don't need to name them, who, for example, have models wearing their underwear and they're plus size models, but their brand actually doesn't sell that size. Or they're promoting, you know, racial equity, but they actually don't pay their people of color a reasonable wage or fairly. And so what I'm noticing is that brands are just going to get called out on their performative marketing, and that brands that have a long history of being true to their values and are making commitments to be better, because by no means are we perfect and are we shining examples of this, but we're working hard to do better. And I think that it's not about us, it's about shining a light on our people, our customers, our influencers, people who don't have the microphone. And I think that is the proper way to do it, and giving them the voice and the platform and using their words and not necessarily ours.
Exactly. That's such a beautiful answer to that question. Derek, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, that was pretty great answer. There's not too much to add. I think for us, our experience, which I can maybe add with that, is that, you know, to the point that Suzanne made about like not being perfect. It's an important thing to understand, because when I even think back to earlier days of Tentry, we didn't have the diversity on our website that, you know, we talked about being an inclusive, diverse employer, and oftentimes our models on our website didn't reflect the team members that we had on our own team. And our team actually came to us and said, we'd like to see you do better in this regard. And so today, I think we've made significant strides with that, but it's a journey, and it's about being fallible, and it's about, you know, taking meaningful steps and sort of being 1% better every day with this. And when it comes to not getting called out, because we're certainly in a time where that's happening a lot, it's about being true to that journey as well. So not trying to pretend like you're further along than you actually are, and enrolling your supporters in that journey.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that is a really good takeaway on this whole conversation is that we're not going to solve it overnight, and it's okay to make mistakes, but at least let's all try. Let's all try. And I think that's one thing that that we're hearing in this community a lot, is just continue to try and improve. How can one of the questions here is how can we support our entrepreneurs in Canada when everybody's affected? What can we do to move that forward is one of the questions here. And I think you guys already told stories about how it is really about elevating everyone around you and making conscious choices. But I'll let each of you answer that question in your own words.
Sure, I can start by just saying I know that money is tight for folks, and you know, just by using your voice and your platform personally, like honestly, if you follow us on social media, I would be incredibly grateful. You know, if you sign up for our newsletter and you begin to use your voice and your platform to spread news and words and encouragement to others, and say, this brand is doing some really great work. I hope one day that I might be able to support them. Or I don't use their products, but I think anybody who might be interested in X and so should give them a look. And just go on that journey with us, because everyone's struggling, but everyone's also trying to make strides to be better. And I echo completely what Derek said. It's like, it's hard holding yourself up to a high standard and meeting it constantly, because there are tough times. And so we understand it's tough for customers right now and tough for the community, and just come as you are and go on the journey with us. Yeah,
I don't have too much to add there. That's a great answer. I mean, we're all in it together, small businesses in particular, along with the people that support them. So, support one another through that, use your platform, be an advocate, and when the time's right, when it makes sense, support in other ways.
Mm-hmm. Great. Another question has come in. Has the sourcing of products or procurement of materials been affected because of COVID-19? Has Isle or Tentry gone more local in terms of supply chain?
It absolutely has. I mean, we've been impacted pretty significantly. I mean, just looking at some of our manufacturers where we make our source all of our fair trade and organic cotton from in India. India's effectively been shut down for months, and that product just continues to get delayed and delayed and delayed. And that's, one of many stories across different countries and things like that. One of the things that we did early on was when we were talking with one of our manufacturing facilities that helps us with our hemp sourcing, they actually said to us, like, we're facing huge cancellations. Big box retailers, Target, Walmart's, REI's, groups like that are canceling orders like crazy. And we have the fabric, we have the liability. And so, we through that worked with them to create masks out of liability fabric to help keep people employed, source. But, we went through the exact same thing Suzanne talked about, which is like, are we just jumping on a bandwagon here? Should we be selling masks, or is this something where it can be authentic to us and actually supporting our factories? And that was kind of a unique opportunity that presented itself within sort of the upheaval of the market. But it's been incredibly, dynamic, to say the least. Is a lot of pivoting, a lot of changing timelines, and a lot of supporting the factories through that. And then when it comes to the question of, are we sourcing more locally, we're definitely looking into it right now. But during the sort of the COVID change, it was our top priority was making sure that we got our existing product that was in the pipeline manufactured, supported our partners right now. But we have started to explore a number of new partnerships that bring a lot of our sourcing closer to home.
Great. And Suzanne?
Yeah, and in our case, I guess the positive part about the rebrand is that we were fully stocked at the time of COVID hitting because of the rebrand, and we got everything organized, and we didn't have any supply chain issues. But as the months have come along, we just have been staying in really, really close touch with all our vendors in our supply chain, and have the benefit also of having visited the factories. We went to Cambodia last year and visited the underwear manufacturer that's making our products. The pads are all made locally, so we continue to support that local economy. The cups are made in Ontario, so that's pretty stable. So we're really fortunate, knock wood, that things are pretty stable for us. And it's in part because we have chosen very carefully who our vendors are, and we happen to be in countries that have not been severely affected by COVID. And we want to continue supporting local and ensuring that all our partners who are here continue to be supported by our business as well. So we're doing the best we can, and crossing our fingers that we can find a vaccine and come out of this and find out what this new normal is going to look like.
There's a question here. That's great, Suzanne. And there's a question here. How do we better address the general pain point or sentiment that buying sustainable is not financially affordable? Do you have any comments on that? I mean, I think that is really being challenged by consumers nowadays. So I think it's getting better, but I'd love to hear your comments.
Derek, you go first.
Yeah, it's we've gone through a bit of a journey on that. I mean, when we started the business, like I said, we didn't know anything about sourcing apparel. We were just buying blanks and putting logos on them. And so, I think what we recognized was that sourcing and manufacturing sustainably is expensive, and that cost, has to be sustainable. The cost has to be, allow you to continue to reinvest in the business and continue to grow. And so for us, our belief has always been that there are misconceptions around sustainable product. One is that it is, crazy expensive, because I don't believe it is. I think you're investing in quality, but I think the best way that I've ever heard it said is that the price of every shirt is the same. It's just a question of who's paying it, whether it's the planet, whether it's the people making it, or whether it's the person buying that shirt. And so I think there's a consumer, the consumer's coming around to that understanding, and more brands that are telling that story, more brands that are talking about quality and investing in sustainable, ethical manufacturing. The tide is changing to investing in good product, not more product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I have to give a shout out to folks like Kelly who are trying to expose, you know, the drawbacks of fast fashion, and that Derek's right. Like, some people are not getting paid a fair wage by making that t-shirt that only cost you $5 or $10. And I'm just really excited about our life cycle analysis results being published so that people can truly see that why they're paying what the price that they're paying is because we have considered all these things, and that there is a cost to the environment of choosing, you know, conventional cotton or choosing to use plastic in their products. And so just better storytelling and greater consumer awareness, and the climate crisis hopefully will kind of wake people up and say that there is a cost to fast fashion and things that are not organic or constantly using oil-based plastic.
Yeah, absolutely. We only have a few minutes left. I think I would love for, we have a couple other questions here. I think the one question about awareness around purpose-driven or sustainable brands without coming across as being insincere, that really does come down to trust and transparency and being completely authentic. And I think Suzanne and Derek have really described what authentic leadership looks like in that space. And the other area I would encourage you to check is maybe the bcorporation.net website, and another website that's called the beinterdependent.org website, because there's a lot of really good articles on that specific topic. The last one, how are you tackling transparency and prioritizing human rights?
I can take that.
Okay,
Suzanne.
great.
Sure. So you know, from our standpoint, I think there's a lot of things that are coming out globally around, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but the Uyghur sort of forced labor in China and things like that. And, you know, for us, it's, we've always believed in really collaborating closely and having really meaningful partnerships with our factories. And so, you know, at the end of the day, you can't be there every single day. And so it comes down to really strong relationships and ensuring that you maintain those and continue to grow and scale those relationships too, as the business continues to grow. We've worked with many of the same factories since we started sourcing our own product, and that's our intention to continue doing that. And we continue to do things like audits and additional things like that. But you know, our factories are supportive of that because they know that this is authentic to who we are, and they know that this gives us the confidence to continue to grow and scale our partnerships together. So, you know, and then when it comes to transparency, we're doing just as much as we can to connect our customer with that process that we're going through. It comes back to telling the story and enrolling all our supporters in the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, we've been to our factory in Cambodia, and they produce reports for us that indicate their labor standards. And we've actually been in touch with the Cambodian government officials to find out, like, what is the minimum wage in Cambodia and how does it compare? And we always ensure that the factories that we work with exceed that. And being a small brand, we can't necessarily afford to do the audits ourselves, but we're able to leverage the audits that have been done by some of the really, really large multinational apparel companies that are working with the exact same factory. So we're being the small fish that's leveraging off of what incredible amount of work that some of the big apparel manufacturers are doing within the factories that we're working with. And in terms of transparency, once we have reports, we put them live on our website, or at least we report the results of those studies, and to provide that transparency. And as a B Corp, we have to provide that evidence. Like, you can't certify unless you can show that you've done that homework. So I feel like, just to round out the conversation, like, being a B Corp holds you accountable and forces the transparency because there is that rigor and third-party audit that happens to maintain your B Corp certification.
Great. Thank you so much, Suzanne and Derek. For those on the line, I'd just like to remind you that I've shared some links that might be helpful. I think some of the things we're hearing today is about being authentic, really sharing what your purpose is as an entrepreneur, and really choosing your own journey there. The other item is really focusing on your internet strategy and also your storytelling. BDC.ca has some wonderful free online tools on all of those topics. And if you're looking at improving your storytelling, definitely there's some great examples on the beinterdependent.org website on B Corps that are doing this globally around the world. And the final thing that I want to leave the audience with today is stay connected. We can really help one another through these hard times. It's amazing what collaborations and different kind of supports you can get when you actually reach out to those in your industry. So I would really highly recommend that you stay connected through obviously Kelly, because Kelly does a great job of that. You're welcome to reach out to any of us specifically if you have any questions, but thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you, Carla, Derek, and Suzanne. That was a really great session. There's a lot of really great questions. So thank you for the questions, the audience. And thanks for everybody having joined us for the past couple of days. Our next session is going to be on October 14th, and the topic is material innovation and sustainability. We will be sending some details out very soon about that. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, as Carla mentioned, there's some really great links shared in this chat forum, including, of course, our links at Fashion Takes Action and the WEAR website. And again, another thank you to BDC for your support of the WEAR webinar series. And best of luck to both you, Suzanne and Derek. I look forward to keeping the conversation going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.